We decided not to put 89 candles on it.
No, that'd have been a little bit much, wouldn't it? Time you'd added the 89 for me and 84 for him. Thank you, dear. Thank you. You're so sweet.
No.
He's just showing it to you.
He's just showing it to you.
I don't know what he's doing.
You just reaching right in the middle of where he's hanging, man.
Oh, I wish y'all would. I wish y'all would. Joe, you ought not to.
That's the reason she wanted to wear a dress today. I just now thought that. Now, y'all worried about her.
They're so good to me. Come here and let me hug you.
Okay.
I didn't want you to do that.
Well, because I don't want to get any makeup on your dress.
That's all right. I don't care that I can wash this.
I'm going to see it.
I thought I could remember you being blonde-headed, kind of blonde.
No. I've got 2 daughters that are still blonde.
Yeah, I know.
They'll be not.
Hey,
Yeah.
put this in there with me alone. Get it all out.
Okay.
I'll be 84.
Joe, y'all too good to me. You shouldn't have done that.
Well, you ain't been around him a long time. You just been a while. I just thought you was 83.
He's getting old enough to join that club up in Jackson.
Huh?
He's getting about old enough to join that club in about 6 more years in Jackson.
You got a 90 plus up there?
Thanks so.
They don't have it till after next year, then I can be up there too.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward.
I certainly believe you'll be there.
I'm going to try just as hard as I know how to be here next the 90th one anyway.
I don't think I'll be around it all.
You'll be 89 tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And if I make one more year, I'll be 90, and I'm sure going to try.
You might be 99 for everything you know.
Well, I'll tell you what, I see them hundreds on that television.
I do too. I sure do.
You see, when you know younger than me dying around.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Everybody's different ages. Y'all got that longevity.
Seems
I
like
just
the
wondered if the
Moors
rest of them
and
had
the
a
Dows
snake that all
and
still be alive. They probably have one.
the Taylors always live long.
That kills. I really believe it. Now, maybe not WD. He is weak anyway.
Well, he getting you more than smoke and strength.
Well, been here if he hadn't.
Does he have cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had one of his lungs
Lung
removed.
cancer. Kill all
Said,
3 of them.
so
all.
I
Oh, he died right after, not long after Papa died, did he? He died before Grandma
thought
died.
he died before.
Well, there was about a month's difference in Mama's and WD's death.
Yeah, it wasn't no time.
Well, no time. I think one was at the end of the month or the next end.
But Doug died first.
Doug, no. Yeah, Doug died first.
He was about 51, wasn't
You know, I was looking
I
at
wish
him.
I'd have brought
he? I believe that's what Kenneth said.
I was looking at him down there at Papa's funeral that day down there. You know, and I think that was really before he knew he was sick, and you could tell he was in, he was in bad shape back then. I don't know whether he had already had that operation or whether he was fixing to.
When Papa died,
Yeah.
yes, he had that.
Had he had it, ain't
He
it?
had one before then. You know,
Heart trouble.
he went down to New Orleans and had that lung removed. The last time I saw him, he was just drawn up into a knot.
So many of the Dows had cancer of the lung.
Well, every one of them that didn't smoke, though, don't seem to. That seemed to have been the problem.
I remember Dick used to say, he didn't matter what happened to him, he'd never quit smoking.
Yeah, or such an old junkie there. And even much Mary, she told me the other day, she told her doctor, said, I you say what you want to now, I ain't gonna quit smoking. Said,
Well,
that's
she's
right.
not. She ain't got long anyway. It won't
Yeah, right.
ever a bit the world quit now.
That's what
Right.
Dick used to say.
Okay, here's the
Thank
You know, when he went over
Well, here's your cake.
when he went over that back problem, he thought he had
Service.
cancer then. That's like Dick, when he went over right after Cliff died, he thought he had cancer.
Well, he's heard so much about
She
this
smoked.
smoke.
I quit 20,
Oh, he's been quit years.
35, 45, 55. I quit 21 years ago.
Well, he told us now that it'd been 25 years since he had that.
I think he's wrong.
And
though.
that's when
I think he
he
quit.
told what month it was.
Did you get
After-
scared?
oh,
Did you get scared when you quit?
Well, I went over to Uncle Buddy's funeral, you know, and I'd done been to WD. Maybe because there wasn't no use of me going out like that if I couldn't have it.
No, you take the chance on something.
Good cake and cream.
Of course, once I quit, I knew I'd made a certain mistake.
Excuse me, child.
Just keep it on. Just broke it up on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here, y'all
Thank you.
blow out sweets having fun.
Sheriff.
Johnny woke me up this morning, told me he couldn't buy the bottle.
Jane.
Well, first of all, we want to say that this is Sunday, June the 28th, 1992, and it's a Sunday afternoon, and it's the day before your birthday, and we have a brother and a sister born on the same day, but one is 84 and one is 89. And today we will have to say that we had Isaac Dow's four sons here. We had Tao, Royce, Glenn, and Joe all here for his birthday and for Aunt Leslie's birthday. But what we want to do is just go back in time and y'all tell us a little bit about how you grew up and some of your relatives. So the first thing would be, where were you born? And I guess we start with Aunt Leslie because you're the oldest. And you tell us where you were born.
I was born in Simpson County in 1903. In Simpson County. It was, well, I guess you would say Star was our post office place. And we lived out in the country, close to Harrisville. But it might not have been Star. It might have been Braxton that we got our mail from at that time. And that's where I was born.
Was that close to where I was
Close
born?
to Harrisville is where I was born. No, that wasn't close to where you
Yes,
were
it
born in
was.
Rankin County.
I don't remember if it's close together.
Well, it
Okay, well,
wasn't
how
that
many
close
brothers
together.
and sisters did you have?
I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters.
Can you name them?
Yes, I can. My oldest brother was Oscar Dowe. And it was Oscar Dowe. And then which one came next? Was Hallie Mae next, or was
They always call her May, I think.
Hallie Mae? My sister was next. And then
Yep.
Isaac, you came next, didn't you, after Hallie Mae?
Yeah.
And then was Clifton the next?
Yeah,
Let's see, who are we leaving out?
you got to get Dolly then, and all that.
Well, she's down at the last, you know. She's one of the younger ones. It was myself, Oscar, and Isaac, and Clifton, and then was WD's kind of down at the last too. He was born in,
I asked the Dolly, but
WD was born in 19... I wish I had that to know. I could just tell you. Let me think to myself. Dolly.
Well, Daddy, were you born the same
Yes.
same place that she was born?
No.
Same house?
No.
Y'all moved around or what?
No, he was not born there.
I
He was born,
always said I was born at that star, but
well, that he was
Florence, it's a
born
little color.
in Rankin County then, wasn't you?
Yeah, Rankin
That would be Rankin County, I think. I think I'm the only one that was born in Simpson County.
And you're the oldest?
I'm the oldest. And
What
when,
type of house did you have back
oh,
then?
honey, we just had a little small house, just
you don't know nothing
just a
about
shack, in
that.
other words.
It was
you know.
1903.
1903.
Didn't
So
even,
you had
didn't
a
even have
well?
screens,
We
nothing
had a
out
well.
in there.
We drew water from the well.
An
We had
outhouse?
Outhouse. No plumbing, no electricity.
What about
In-
stove?
At a wood stove, we burned wood.
Cast iron type?
Cast iron type stove. Little 4-eyed stove, they called it, with 4 eyes.
Who cut all that wood? Did Papa cut any wood?
I can't remember for sure,
No,
but
he didn't.
our uncle lived with us several years.
What was his
Now, what was
name?
his-
His was Arnie Dowe. And he lived with us, and I can remember him cutting wood, but I can't remember my daddy cutting any wood. He might have.
Old Ralph laughs about it now.
It was gone horse trading, but
Yeah.
He said it. He talked
anyway.
about Dick. He says Dick tell you how he worked, and he says you know it yourself. You old, he says a whole lot older than me. He said, don't you remember me and old Billy used to come up there and take his wood for granddaddy, then Colin House and pile it up for him and filled him a fire. And he said if he done all that work, he said he done it years ago. He'd never do what he is.
Well, this was our first. I'm trying to get to the first. By the time Oscar, my next oldest one of us, was born, Papa and Mama had moved up in Hines County.
But your daddy was a horse trainer.
My daddy was a horse trainer. And that's about all he ever did, really, till his later years. And his later years,
He done good,
farmed
damn.
and did good.
Now, where did he get these horses?
Well,
Up
he
in
was
World
a-
Hair, they let him have them. He sold them just like a car, and he'd go up and pay them.
He would go up to Yazoo City, and they had auctions.
No, son, honey, he brought them right out of Jackson up here, right there now.
He probably got some of them up there.
He got them in, had them, and whole lined them down through there, and would tie one of them to one of them's tail with it and lead them right down through the ground. They were the preacher was down there a while back and tell me about that. He says I remember. He said they had a big lot down Braxton, and he says it was Saturday and rainy days. He said these farmers would go out, and buy them a mule, a horse, trade, and do other things. I remember your daddy being there.
Well, I do know that he did go to Yazoo City and buy them and bring them back to
Well,
Jackson.
Will Harris was one of the biggest men in Mississippi, mule man them days.
Was it mostly mules or horses?
It was mules and horses. It really didn't. And they were so cheap then, you wouldn't think you would make anything out of
No, you were wrong, sister. They ain't never been cheap one of them. In them days, it wasn't even in Depression times. If Papa was here and tell you a mule and a horse was high them days, they had to have them to live.
What would one cost?
Huh? They cost about the cheapest old horse you'd get $150, $200 from them. And you can buy them now. Used to could, can't now for most anything.
I would say about $50 be the highest. At
Back
that
in
time.
1903.
Yeah, 1903. Now,
That's
later
probably-
years they did, but now.
Well, I've had them to come down there when I was big enough to plow, come down and take the horse out where I was plowing him and sell it. And
Well, see, that was later on. That was years after the first,
But
you
we're
know, like we were
talking
born,
the turn of the
before
century.
that time.
What made you move to another home?
Well,
that's all we ever done over years,
The-
rent. So where we
when we
didn't know did have nothing.
from Harrisville, well, Papa had a sister that lived in Hines County up there.
What was her name?
Now I bet I can't remember her name.
What do you know?
No, that you off on the wrong ones there. Now you off on Uncle Willie's.
Well, I don't know about them. Well, you didn't either, because I can remember just about what you got.
Well, anyway, he had a sister that lived up there. It was Uncle Willie Whittington. She married a Whittington, Willie Whittington. And they had a farm, and they wanted Papa and Mama to move over, and grow a crop with them. When this was all going, Papa really wasn't buying and selling that when we were little like this, It was later years when he took up this. And so they moved up there and stayed up there. I don't know how many years they stayed up. It seemed like Hallie Mae was born in Hines County, too. Then they moved back to Rankin County.
The old preacher was right about it. He said that them days that car sale wasn't nothing inside of a man selling mule and horses like he was them days. Said they had to have them to live,
It was equivalent to a car salesman.
Yes, that's right.
That's what he said.
Did we get your names of your brothers and sisters all down in order?
Well,
Yeah, I think he did.
there was, I'm the oldest. Oscar's the next. and the Isaac's the next.
No, had a baby.
Adam A is the next, and the Isaac's the next.
Yeah, then
WD's the next.
no, you ain't.
I mean, Clifton is the
yes,
next.
I say you wrong.
Well, you just give me time, man, and I'll get it right if you don't buddy.
Oh, I can call them off just easy.
Well, go ahead and call me.
Huh?
Go ahead and call them.
After Clifton.
Huh?
After Clifton.
After Clifton come me.
No.
Huh?
You're older than Clifton.
Well, you was talking about that. That's how they come down to it. I don't know. Well, it was Oscar and Hallie Mae and Oscar and you and Oscar and Hallie Mae. Then me, I guess. Then Deb and Cliff, he come in there. Then
Alma.
yeah, Alma come in there. Then Dub come in there.
Her
Then
name's
Dick.
Alma.
But you called her.
We called her Dowe. Her name is Alma. And then Dick, you know, and of course his name is
Alvin Patrick.
Alvin Patrick.
So the youngest one was,
Alvin Patrick.
Alvin Patrick.
and he was
born in Rankin County.
about what year?
He was born in 19. This is what I was
I
trying
believe you
to
told
think
me he
now.
was 72
One of
years
them was
old.
born in 1950 and the next one 1920. It's more years between Alma, between Dub, Clifton. No, WD. There's more years between him and Dick than any of them. And I believe that was about 5
I'm
years
12 or
something.
13 years older than Dick myself.
Well, yes. And but anyhow,
Tell me where your daddy came from.
well, my daddy came from Simpson County, over around McGee and around down
Mendenhall, yeah,
Mendenhall
we-
down in there's where he came from.
Do you
His
know
family.
the year he was born or about the year?
Well, that's what I say. If I just had that, I would know. But I think it was 18 and 84. I'm not sure about that.
I go down and look on them tombstones. That's pretty good.
1884, and I think Mama was born in 1886 because it's about 2 years.
Mama wasn't but about 70-something years old, was she?
What
Yeah,
was her
Mama.
maiden name?
Papa was 80 when he
Mama.
died, and he was
Emma.
older than her.
Emma May was Mama's name.
May?
Emma May.
And her last name?
Her last name was Mohon.
And her people came from,
Around Crystal Springs in Capar County. The Mohons live in
and
Capar
the
County.
Mohons, did they farm?
Yes, they mostly farm.
Did they own their own land or did they tenant farm?
Well, most of them owned their land, the Mohons did.
Okay, well, did the Downs?
He never owned that.
They didn't own any land?
No,
They tenant farm?
well, he rented. I don't know whether you call it that. You didn't call that tenant farm, did you?
That's working
Or
on having.
shares or whatever.
So you rented
Did they have
it?
workers on the farm that did that? I mean, who did the actual work now?
The
kids?
family done it.
That's what I'm getting at. Did y'all do the actual
Yeah.
farming? What
Well,
kind of crops did you grow?
Cotton, corn, and sweet potato, peas, and everything else.
How did you buy your clothes? How did your mother and daddy buy your clothes? Do they buy them once a year,
well,
twice a year?
I won't tell you about that. The first store that I ever knew anything about was Odom's store out at Star, and he just had a general store, you know, where you bought everything. Your food, your clothes, your
Farm equipment.
farm
and everything.
equipment and everything. Well, when they would sell the cotton and get the little money, well, Papa and Mama would go out to the store, you know, and buy materials to make us school dresses and make us clothes to wear to school and get us some cotton stockings. They weren't called hose those days.
Did y'all
they were
wear
cotton
black
stockings.
bloomers like we did?
I don't think they. I don't remember about that. But anyway, that's where we would get our clothes. And most of the time, they
There's a
were
bad little you ever got
for-
to buy anything with them days.
No, was overalls, they called them in those days. That's what
And you
What
paid.
did the girls mostly wear?
Well, we just wore old dresses. Mama would make us these, I don't know what kind of dresses you would really call them, but they would, from the shoulders up, and they would just hang loose down, or maybe she'd get us an old belt and we'd tie that around us, just
when they was playing ball, the women folks, they wear big old bloomers, around. One of them girls wouldn't even put one of them things on now.
That was your, Carrie talked about that, playing ball, and your wife. She talked about
Carrie.
Playing ball with and bloomers
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah.
But this was before that. This is earlier, when you were growing up, and you paid that store probably when the crops came in.
Yes, that's when you paid your bills. You see, you got this, they called themselves furnishing you, even you did rent. You'd get this man to furnish you your foods and things.
You know how they paid the taxes them days that they didn't pay them for the road. You went out there and worked it out there on
the road.
On the road.
Oh well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What about
if you didn't have the money? If you had the money, you could pay it. But most people just went out there and worked a few days and settled it up.
Well, we had a little old one-room schoolhouse where we went to school to start school. And
just a one-room outfit. They had it partitioned off, with cloth.
we went to school. Well, we had to bring our water from a spring at that school, and it was, everybody wanted to go and get the water, so we could get out of school to go to the spring and bring a bucket of water. And we had the same teacher taught all the grades. We didn't have but one teacher. It was a one school.
Now, how many students were there?
Oh, maybe about 20, I would say.
Yeah, they never even go to school them days. That's what I got.
Now, I think my grandmother said they only went to the 11th grade.
Oh, yes, even when, in my time, when they graduated, I think, seems to me like they graduated even the 10th grade or the 11th. I don't remember which when it was time. But all I know is I don't know if I really finished the 10th grade or not, but I was. 10th grade as high as I got.
But them days, you got to attend like you got as if like having a college education, man. Then you had to know it, memorize it, and everything.
Well, what did you take to school for lunch?
Oh my goodness. We'd get a bucket. We usually had these tin school buckets, they called them then. We were lucky if we had one of those.
Sweet.
And
sweet potatoes.
And Mama would make biscuits, and put us a little, some kind of jar thing of syrup, molasses we called it then. Put it down in this bucket and these biscuits. Sometimes we'd have a sweet potato, but it wasn't all that often when I started school. And we'd all get together, and we'd put us a hole down in this biscuit, make us a hole down and pour this syrup down in that hole, and we would have a feast. We thought we just had everything.
Well, what did you eat for breakfast?
Well, let's see, what did we have for breakfast?
Eggs and ham. You've done pretty good on that because we kill hogs.
In my first times, I did not have ham for breakfast because Papa was not the type person that raised things.
He didn't try to do it.
He didn't try to do it, so I'm just going to be honest about it. We didn't have a lot like a lot of our friends did. Their fathers would grow hogs and, and kill hogs and have hams and all that, but Papa was never like that. Even later on.
He never was a man never had a garden. He wouldn't work no garden.
Your mother didn't have a garden?
Oh, well, she couldn't do it. She couldn't fly it. But I'll tell you right now, after I made that boy's mama, we had a garden. We eat it.
Well,
she says, you can't live, and she was right. She said, you can't live. So I don't see how y'all live around here on this flat of gravy and stuff. Said, I can't live it.
Emma had so many children, she wouldn't have been able to work the garden.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we did farm, Papa called himself hiring a wages hand, which was a black man. And he would do the plowing and like that, and Papa dressed up every morning and went on his horse trading business, that was after we got up to be good-sized kids, you see.
What kind of clothes did he wear?
Oh,
And he wore the good hat all his life. He wore one of his good Stetson hats.
And he would leave every morning with a white shirt on, you know, and his
Had a brand new buggy and rubber tied on it.
good shoes, you know, and he'd crawl up and had him a good saddle. He always had a good saddle horse, you know. He'd crawl up
He
on
lived
that
good.
saddle and take off. Well, that left the kids, us kids, and this black man, you see, to do what was done in the fields. So that's what we did.
Well, Oscar kind of had to go ahead every day. He's older, and he done a lot.
That Oscar never hurt himself. Here's the one that worked to make up for Oscar and Hattie. They would get in the fields and they would start having fights, dirt fights, and in the spring.
How old were you by that time?
Oh, honey, I just don't know. But anyhow, I'll never forget this one time. Papa had sent us, now you go over there told us what field to go to. Now I expect every row of that, it's cotton I think it was, to be holed out now when I come in this afternoon. Well, he sent the three of us over there. We get over there, and it's early spring. Of course they wore these old heavy union suits, underwear, you know, in the wintertime. And Mama never would let them pull them off till long in May sometime. You know. So they get over there that day, and Buddy pulled off his underwear. And he and Hattie, my sister, they got out there and dug a hole and buried the underwear, you know, so Mama wouldn't know they had the underwear. Well, then they decided they was just going to have a dirt fight. And they got out there and got to throwing dirt at each other. And then our neighbors up on the hill from them, well, Buddy and them couldn't get along a bit. They had kids our ages, you know. And he saw them over there in their field, so he and Hattie got to chunking dirt at them, you know. They got to chunking dirt. And I'm out here just hoeing like you wouldn't believe, so Papa wouldn't beat the life out of us. When he got home, we wouldn't have anything done.
Was he bad to spank y'all now?
Well, he never did me. Mama said one time he did slap me, but I don't even remember. Papa never hit me a lick, except the time that Mama told me about it. He never did hit me.
I'll tell you one thing, though.
But
when May got the same way, there ain't no way to make her shut her mouth. You'd have to kill her. I remember at one time on the porch out there one winter, and he whooped her. He told Mama, said, "Oh, no, can't whoop her no more." And she never would give up. She'd talk back at him every time he just knock her in the head and everything. She'd never give up. You could whoop her till she died, and she'd come back at you.
What I was going to tell you about these kids, though, that came over there. They finally got up in the trees, you know, would holler back at each other and holler back at each other. So we had some sorghum cane that was close by. Well, when we started out, these boys' mama, it made her mad. She threw her a fit too, you know. Hattie and Oscar was on to her kids, you know, threatening what they was going to do to them. They was going to bring this cane up there and beat them up when they started. We had to go right by her house to get back to our house, you see. We started up that road, and that woman came out there, and Buddy started to take his cane, you know, and get on her, and I tried to get him off, and so finally she did get him off, and she hit him a few times, and go home and tell Mama, and then she gets all upset, and we have a time. I'm telling you, that Oscar was something else. When you go to school, if Hattie and him was together on that school bus, they would have a fight every time with somebody on that school bus.
Y'all did have a school bus?
Yeah, we had a school bus. I had an old truck. This was in later after we got larger, you know. We went to Star to school.
You remember that day, when Ryan come out, she'd slap, May had slapped that old gal, you know, going on. He come out and go and jump on, she whooped him. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you two, boy, that old fight you, she never did get back to her.
Nothing they wouldn't do. And I was just like this every time I got on that bus, just knew something was going to happen.
Well, we had to walk to school.
Well, this was later. I'm talking about like the last year.
Oh, yeah, we had to walk 6 miles.
What I was going to tell you, somebody had an old flatbed truck, and they put some benches on this old truck, and we rode in that. Well, when wintertime come, you know, it was just too bad to get on that old truck there. And somehow they seemed to me like some kind of tarpaulin thing they put over there for us to ride, you see. Well, like he was telling about Miss Ryan got on to Hattie and she beat her up. They beat each other up. Well, that next morning when we got on there, on Mr. Ryan, it was him, wasn't it, that got behind the truck and followed us to school, and he went and told the principal about it. Had his gun on his shoulder, you know. He'd come prepared. And we didn't have a time.
What did your daddy do to him?
Well, Papa didn't do anything but to him. But they
Oh, them days, it was just,
you know,
it was just something. They're so ignorant they didn't know how to live. That's the biggest trouble it was, you know.
Well,
But that principal, that was a principal there then, that was his first year. The last year that I went to school, I went to him. And his name was Lessie. And that
Y'all
was his
ain't
first,
gone, are you?
that was his first school that he ever taught, and he was colorblind. And we just had the most fun out of him, you know. Every day we'd want to know, you know, what color our dresses was or our hair. He would tell us, you know, what color he thought it was. And do you know that the last year that he was the principal of the school, my granddaughter graduated. She went to school to him, and she at Brookhaven. He was in Brookhaven for several years coming back.
How about that?
And he'd always come in the shop and talk to Doris. And it just happened that I never did get to meet him, you know. He wouldn't be there the same times I would, but he would come in and ask about me. He remembered me very well, you know, and he wanted to see me. Well, when the graduation was over, of course, I was there. And so then later, Doris told him that I was there, you know. He said, why in the world didn't she let me know she was there? He said, I'd had her come up on that stage with me. Said I would have been so glad to have told them that I taught her my first year of school, and I taught her granddaughter the last year. He was such a nice person. And he married one of the Odom girls that I was telling you about this story, you know. He married one of those girls, and she was a good friend of mine.
Well, when did you start dating?
Oh, I reckon maybe about 16 or something like that.
And how did you date?
Oh, we just had a boyfriend, and we'd walk.
Go down and you carried him down a lot of times. They would make him chop some stove wood up that evening.
We gonna get
Didn't
back,
you do it?
We gonna get back to that wood cutting time.
I know a lot
about
about
so and so bringing wood up there. Here's the old sister who cut the stove wood. Nobody could please Mama getting
old
wood
dead
for the
trees
stove.
where they'd cut logs, you know. She'd go down and cut
And
them up and stuff.
I'd have to get that stove wood. And Oscar, my brother, he'd sit up on the porch and just laugh, you know, because I was having to go out and cut the wood. If he cut it, he didn't get the kind Mama wanted, and I didn't have any better sense. I went and tried to please her, so I had it all to do. So finally one time Papa decided that he would get some boys that lived next to us to cut us a cord or two of stove wood, you know.
This gal here has had some bad times, too.
And I
She's just
tell
like
y'all,
me.
I never was as happy in my life when I could go there and just pick up that stove wood and take it in the house. But I had to lay it just so for Mama. It had to be just right in there. But that was a lot better than going out and cutting it with the axe and bringing it up there. I was so happy when he had that.
Was she particular? Did she have to have a clean house?
Well, it wasn't so much about that. It didn't make too much difference about the house. But now, when it come to cutting stove wood or getting wood,
People didn't care too much about the house like y'all do now. Them days, it make no difference, so we get in and out.
Well,
I remember one time this gal right here over there, I walked over there in the house, and the old field, I think, was 2 miles over where they worked. And there's her and her sister, and I don't know, one of them other two girls up in that place, and her mama had bars nailed up across there where they couldn't get out. She had water in there for them and everything, but they had to stay there by themselves in that place.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
me that again. You had to stay there.
You need to get her name for the
I
purpose
can't
of the tape,
really
too.
Oh,
remember.
Be sure and tell your name. And could you tell us when you were born? Because that would help.
Lily Hudson, I was born in 1916, October the 21st.
Well, Uncle Tom, she was a tailor to start off with.
I was the tailor.
And your cousin, first
First cousin.
cousin,
Isaac and Lessie.
first cousin.
Yeah.
Did you live by them?
Well, yes, one time, yes.
Well, when my daddy died,
Now, give us your mother and Nettie's name and try the connection back. So
my daddy was Tom Taylor, my mother was Lillian Taylor
Yes.
at that time.
And
Of
that was,
course, later she married.
She was a Mohorn. I don't get to tell
Well, she was
her.
a Mohorn to start with. She made money.
okay, well, tell me about it was hard having twins back then, wasn't it?
Woo! We weighed less than 6 pounds together, and I was born dead. And her mother brought me back to life.
How?
I was black when I was born. Oh, well, it was October, and it was cold weather.
Well, as I remember, the cold, fair frosty morning when you was born.
Yeah, it was cold weather. It was
Yeah.
big, it looked like snow, Mama said.
We was out there eating, me and old Dowe said, out there eating potatoes out there, you know, and peeling old raw
Anyway, the
potatoes.
doctor, when I was born, laid me out in the bed. And I was black as nigger, Emma said. And so while the doctor was delivering the other one, well, she took me over by the fireplace and started massaging me and all. The first thing you know, I said, yeah. And so I came back to life. But I didn't know anything. Of course, I remember when it
I just remember seeing her daddy pass through the house on an old red mule in a gallop going to start to see some medicine to get the medicine. Doctor one, you know, that's all where he had to go them days.
And your people were farmers?
Yeah, that's all it was. All knew when we and her was coming up.
I don't know what kind of farmer, because he died when I was 4 years old. But I can remember when he died. I was 4 and a half, I think. But before that, it might have been the year he died, because he had just gathered potatoes. I remember going out in the field where the potato patch was, and there was a huge log, and it was burnt. And we were playing on top of that log out there. And it must have been that log.
What was the matter with your daddy when he died?
He had a
TB is what they
hemorrhage,
said.
Do what?
blood vessel bursted in his head.
He was young.
34, and he died.
Big stout man with a ring of memory
But
started.
he was warned of his death. Mom said that it was on Saturday, and he went to town to buy groceries on Saturday. So he had when he left to go to town, he told Mama to bake him some sweet potatoes. That's what he wanted. Well, she baked them while he's gone. When he got back, he brought in a big old can of coffee. It must have been something like a 3-pound can or something. And he set it on the table. And he said, he called her Madam. And he said, Madam, this is my last coffee I'm going to buy. And she said, why, Tom, are you going to quit drinking coffee? He says, no, because I'm not going to buy any more coffee. And he told her, he said, I've got a headache. He said, I'm going to go lay down before I eat potatoes. So he lay down and never did get up. He started hemorrhaging. And just before he died, he was dying, I guess, he told Mama, he says, there's a snake in my bed. And he says, get that snake out of my bed. And Mama said, well, Tom, there's no snake in your bed. And said it calmed him down when she said that. And then he says, Madam, do you hear that music up at the head of my bed? That it sounds like angels singing. And then he died.
And
So I figured the angels came to get him.
Now, was your father or your mother?
My mother was her sister. I mean, her
Mother's sister. Okay.
So we're first cousins.
Okay. Do you know when your mother was born?
No, I
Got
don't.
it down to
It's down there. Do you remember any stories that your mother told you about when she was growing up?
To my mama, you talking about my mama?
They didn't do
Well,
much
I'll
telling
tell
none
you
of
something
that.
right now. Mama wasn't not much of a talker. She did not have very much to say. But when, see, my great-grandmother, I guess it was my grandmother, she didn't like my daddy. She didn't like him at all, and she didn't want my mama to have anything to do with him. They both worked on the same farm, and of course would see each other and talk. And she did not like him. So they decided that they would just run away and get married. Didn't have a thing in the world, you know. So,
You know how old they were when they got married?
yes, Mama was 15 years old, and Papa was like about 17, I reckon, because he was about 2 years older than Mama. And all they had, Papa, I have the old trunk at home now. He had this little old trunk and had his few little clothes that he had, which wasn't many. And he hid this trunk out, you see, till he got a chance to. And Mama, she said she just tied up a few things in something, I don't know what, she said, you know, a few of her clothes and hid them out.
Well, I'd dad to say, trust me, and your mother got married and have a thing in this world. That's crazy.
Well, wait and let me finish this and you tell that. She said that they,
She likes.
whenever they was going to go down the railroad track, you know, to get away so they couldn't see them from where the house was, so they got together. He said he put his little trunk up on his shoulder, you know, and Mama had this little pack on her back. And they walked down the railroad track there somewhere, and they came to a crossing. And there was a man there in a wagon, and he was going to Crystal Springs. That's where they was trying to make it to get married, you see.
And they were coming from where now?
They was coming from above Crystal Springs up there.
Around Terry, or?
No, it was between Terry and Crystal Springs.
Okay.
I'd say maybe about 4 miles or something north of Crystal Springs. Well, this man, they asked him if they could ride to Crystal Springs with him, and they said, yeah, so they put their things in, crawled up in this wagon with him, and came to Crystal Springs, and the house is still there that they got this preacher to marry him. That Papa had known this preacher in a time, had seen him, you know, and had asked him, you know, would he marry him, and he told him he would. So they went there, and they got married there. And then seems to me like he said he went to his sister's house. They went to his sister's house that night and spent the night or a few days or something. And Grandma just threw such a fit, and she wouldn't let him come in the house, and she wouldn't let her come back for the longest kind of time. So.
Did he have a job at that time?
Didn't have a job, didn't have a thing. No, he hadn't thought about selling horses at that time, you know. He didn't have a job, but...
What were his people like?
Who, Papa's people? Well, I never did know any of them except his brother, his half-brother. That's the only one of Papa's people that I ever
Well,
knew.
old man Wilder Harper and her first
well,
cousin.
cousins and things like that. I did know some of his first cousins.
But you really never knew
you really never knew his father or his mother, either one.
What was the half-brother's name?
Ani, O-N-N-I, Ani Dowe. And he moved to Shreveport. And he lived at Shreveport till he died over there.
No close, and didn't know one for years and years.
Well, do you know that's his half was his mother was the first or second wife, or
his, my daddy's mother? I guess it was the first. He was the first one's son, cause and her name was Margaret. And I think she was a Harper, you know, to start with. I think her maiden name was Harper.
Was she from that area?
Yes, she was from over there where he was born over there. Well, in later years then, I don't know how many years, don't know how old Papa was, but I think he had gotten out on his own by that time. She had married another man, and they moved to Arkansas. Was the last time I ever heard from them, you know, that she moved to Arkansas. And so from that, Papa never knew any more about her, so far as I know.
And you don't know her
No husband, no, I sure don't. I can't remember. I guess I've known in a time, but I can't remember now who it was that she married.
Josie, do you know what a surrey is?
Talking about like a buggy with a little canopy on it?
Well, that's what my daddy went to the cemetery with. And I remember riding that.
What year was that?
You wouldn't know.
Well, it couldn't have been 4 years.
4.5 years old.
you might have rode in a surrey to his, but he didn't ride in there because it wouldn't have been room for a casket in the surrey.
Well, we rode in it.
Yeah, y'all rode in it, I expect. They probably carried the casket in a wagon, more than likely.
I remember putting the casket in the grave.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But see, that just had 2 seats. A surrey just had 2 seats in it. There wouldn't have been room to put a casket. You probably rode to the cemetery.
That was the first and the last survey I ever saw.
Well, I used to ride in.
Well, now she's right, Tim, about one thing. They used to make an old series. They carried people to the cemetery. They had one.
I know what you're talking about, and she might.
That's about what she's talking about, you know. Yeah.
They made the casket.
Yeah, she had. That's the way he carried her daddy. I imagine them.
Did they make up the caskets as they needed them? Is that
Yes,
the way
when somebody died.
You know, they got after me and Dick Boyd up here one time at church. Got talking about these funeral homes, and he said something about it. Says, I remember didn't even have a funeral home. Someone got laughed. He says, I can't. I said, certain. I said they used to come in when anybody died. They come and got the lumber and made them a casket out there and buried them in it. And they got the lumber. He says he's telling the truth. Old Dick says, I remember.
At home.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said they didn't have no funeral homes to carry you back.
They still do that in Iceland.
Yeah, I expect they do. Yeah. Yeah, they'd all get together, neighbors out there. If I die, they'd start saving after to making me a casket. And they'd carry me, bring that wagon up and get me. But she's right about it. I can remember them old Surrey things that used them to carry them to the funeral home. I mean, carry them to the cemetery.
I think I've seen it in movies and things.
Yeah, they got pretty plentiful.
I want to ask you about being a twin, and you were saying being locked up. What in the world?
Well, she doesn't remember that, but I do very well because I found them in there.
When our daddy died, of course, Mama...
She wasn't very big when her daddy died.
Her daddy was not dead when they locked her up.
Mama, had to take in washing and hoe corn and cotton 6 cents a day or something like that.
They come up and spend the time with us.
And I think the churches, I guess it was Hazelhurst or somewhere, came out with all the groceries and live chicken, put them under the tub and stuff like that.
It was Christian.
But after about 2 years, Myrtle, my youngest sister, was 2 years old, and Mama put us in Austin, Daddy's Austin. And she was a Methodist, but she put us in Daddy's Austin. And we stayed there. They couldn't leave us.
Them days, most all people was Methodists, wasn't it?
If it was only 2 years, they had to adopt us out. So Mama got married in about a year and a half.
So she, 2 of you, she couldn't tend to.
Me and old Dick Boyd, one was up there that day that could vouch for that. When he started out, he said, I can prove it back there. I said, oh, yes, sir, you're right.
You died at home, you had no hospitals to go to, you died at home, they made you casket.
Right. They didn't even carry you. In other words, I don't think they even carried you to the church house. They just carried you on. You had to get...
Y'all hush.
And so, she put us in hospital.
Well, that's sad, but, in those times, there was nothing else to do. Well, what did you eat on Christmas and Thanksgiving?
Well, we used to have a fairly nice dinner. Mama made the best coconut cakes that ever was, and we have coconut cakes.
The best biscuits then. The year I stayed with them and went to school at University.
Well, tell me about all those Christmas presents. I know you just got lots of back then. What did you get?
Well,
what was a
little stick can, didn't you?
Well, I want to tell you now what I got when I was a child, Christmas time. Papa and Mama always managed to get the girls a doll, and had hair, and a doll. We got an apple, we got an orange, and I don't know whether we got walnuts or what, but 2 or 3 nuts piece or something. And that's just about it. And I forgot what they got the boys.
Old Janice wouldn't know how things going on now.
What did they get you for Christmas? What did you remember getting for Christmas? Anything?
When you was a little kid.
Oh, I'll tell you about the best thing we ever got. Then you got a pair of shoes. You got them once a year. If you tore them up for spring come, you wasn't barefooted.
Well, in my day, when I was little, I got a doll, and my sister Hannah Mae did too. Of course, Dolly was not born at that time when I was small enough to get Santa Claus. And we got a doll.
Tell us. Go ahead.
That's all right. And we got a doll, and they'd usually have a dark-haired one or a light-haired one. And I never will forget one time Mama let me pick which one I wanted, and I wanted the dark hair, and come to find out Hannah Mae was so pleased with hers, you know, with the light hair, and so we really both got what we wanted. And I want to tell you about one time, though, when we was looking for Santa Claus. This was late, way along up. We should have known what Santa Claus was by then, but we really didn't. And Papa was going to Terry. He was going to be gone. Now, that was Christmas Eve night, but he dresses himself up and comes to Terry over there, to Oscar Francis over there, his big friend. I don't know for what. I don't know a thing about that. But anyway, Mama was afraid to stay up that night. See, we live way out in the country, to put the things out for us. So she sent us kids off down behind the house, had big old gullies, we called them, then down behind where we played. So she sent us off down there to play, and she had we had this big old cotton sack, and she had all of our things in this cotton sack. Well, after a while, she called us to come to the house, you know. She said, it's getting late. And she could holler and call Lessie. You could hear it to my house. Well, they did hear it about a mile.
I could be a mile, and she called me, and I knew I better be on my way, because when I got there, I always remembered it.
So she called us, and we went to the house, and she took us in then. She said, well, Santa Claus passed along out there while
they believed in Santa Claus, that's it, it's great big
while he was
stuff.
playing, and said he was in a hurry. He was trying to get around before it got too dark. And he just left this sack here. Said, now let's get into this sack and see what he's left, you know. You're talking about some happy young'uns. We were so glad Santa Claus had come, we didn't have to wait till the next morning, you'd see, to get it.
Oh, goodness. But you had a big dinner? Did you have a lot of family?
Oh, yes, and Mama always had chicken. We had chicken, and I don't think we had dressing, because I don't know if they made dressing those days. But we
did
would
a lot
have
of family come in?
Oh, no, we just mostly had our own family.
Nobody didn't get around nowhere. You
But
was too
now,
far apart. You couldn't go nowhere where to go.
if somebody,
Y'all have been slammed out of existence now them days.
if a family decided they wanted to go to visit another family, the whole bunch would get in a wagon and ride down there and spend the day and maybe spend the night. We've had them to come our house and do the same thing. Whatever we had to
Sleep
do,
on the floor.
we just shared it and slept on the floor, put a quilt down, you know, and we just had the best times in the world. We didn't know any better. We enjoyed it.
Well, I've got to ask how you lost your finger.
Well, Cliff, my brother shot it up, trying messing with a shotgun.
How old were you?
Well, that's right at the last of the First World War. I don't know when it. I wasn't there. Huh?
1917.
Well, I remember it very well because I was right there when it happened.
1919. How old were you? Let's see, you were born in...
1908.
Was this out in the woods, or where were you?
No, he was in the house.
I was in the house putting salve on this foot down on the left,
You got 10 or 11?
Let me tell you about it.
and so he is over on the other side. My daddy never did do no hunting, so he lent that old shotgun out to fellow who killed some birds over in his field. So he just let him have it. So he brought it back and left a shell in it. So he jumped up there and told me he's going to show me how to shoot a rabbit, and he did. He shot. I was putting salve on that foot there, on that toe right along there. And he shot that and it went slam through a feather bed and to the old house burned up. Them shot was still in there. And so she them days had we had an old telephone. And so she called out the Star where Papa and Mama was out there doing some shopping or something. And so got a hold of them. So they brought an old doctor on out there with them.
Well, let me ask you something. I've always heard was it more than one shot?
No.
No,
one
he
shot.
didn't. It was one
Just
shot.
one shot.
That was all.
And the doctor said it blowed my hand off, but he said I was so close to him till it just scatter. And so that doctor come out there and went to work on it, and by that time he done called up to Florence and nobody get in and told them. So here come 3 doctors in there with me. And so they got the name, messed my finger all up this way, you know. and one of them wanted to break
out there where we can see it.
and tear and fix it again all over. And I said, man, I don't want that. And so they just left it that way. It's interfered with me a whole lot. There's no picking cotton and such as I can pick no cotton.
It wasn't just Dr. Barlow. The way it was, he had raised some geese. Was it geese or ducks?
Oh, I had nothing to do with them.
Yes, you did. Now, let me
I didn't know geese. I did have some, but sold them both me
and you sold them.
Now,
Sold them.
Ain't Leslie tell her side.
Let me tell my
I'm telling it right there.
Well, how it was. See, Dowe was,
Nah.
yeah, it was Dowe that was a baby then. And Papa had been out at Star all day. He rode the horse out early that morning. So that about dinner time, she got in the buggy, he'd stuffed the horse to the buggy, and she was going to take his money that he had sold his geese for and buy him a suit of clothes with it. So she had gone to Star to get this suit for him. Well, after she left, I was going to bathe Dowe, you know, he was a little old fella, and I was going to bathe him, and the way you bathed in those days, you just got a pan of water and a bath towel, and you just took their clothes off and just washed them off, you know. Well, when I heard the gun shoot in there, I'm out on the porch now, on the front porch doing this, and they're in the bedroom. So when I heard the gun shoot, like scared me to death, and just as it shot, Clifton come running out past me, you know, and he just took on out to the barn and hid out in the barn.
He knew he was in trouble.
He knew he was in trouble. Well, I got on the phone. I grabbed and his hand was just bleeding, and I got this old dirty thing that I had taken off of Dowe, you see, and I just wrapped it around there, and I said, it's going to be all right. And I called this next door neighbor down there, and she was pregnant. She could, I think maybe she had the baby the next day or something like that. And I didn't know what I was doing, you see, but I called her, and she wobbled on up there and came up there.
Well, you want to know now?
And then they called Star. She got on the phone then and got a hold of Mama and Papa and told them what had happened. So they brought Dr. Barlow with them when they came out.
No, they brought that other old doctor,
There
Dr.
wasn't no
Barlow.
other doctors up
There was
there.
that old man with TB out there. Dr. Barlow, that wasn't in town, I don't think, old Dr.
Yeah,
Barlow.
well, old Dr.
But they
Barlow.
got them two good doctors in Florence, and they was down there. And everything. They called on up there. They figured one good on that doctor told me, said, I think, they called him, said, I think I can go out there myself. Oh, he's a fine doctor. Got out there and got messed up. And what it was, where it happened, you see, he had shot me, and we shoot one of those shells, and it just smoked the house. It was just plumb full of smoke. And she comes in there and says, who hurt now? Nobody didn't say ever hurt, didn't know hurt nothing. Asked me, and she looked at me and says, you were the one, see you bleeding down there? I said, well, I knew I wasn't hurting a bit of war. And so she says, well, it's bound to be you. And looked down and said, you the one, you done got shot, see where you're bleeding all over the floor. And it never did even really
Hurt
bother.
later, though, didn't it?
No, never did
Never
hurt.
did. They didn't have any kind of painkillers to give you.
No, nothing like that.
What did they
But
do?
I tell you,
Just go ahead and
they put me to sleep. They put me to sleep with those stuff. What do you call it?
Just hanging.
Ether. And I ain't never been sick, and I was a stout, kind of long about that time, taking all them three doctors hold me down to get that in before he put me to sleep, you know. And I was raring in there, and it just scared
What
me.
did you do with the finger?
Huh, they taking it out there in the garden. Someone buried it on the end of the
Mama
garden.
buried it out.
Yeah, see, I know all about it.
Well,
Then Papa, too, he them days, you know, and never did let me go with him for several days. For a weekend, he'd put me up my bug and let me go where he went, you know, where I was with me. I don't know what.
You got special treatment.
Yeah.
When did your mother die and when did your father die?
I don't know. I'd have to go down and look on that. Mama died in 78, didn't she? Or 77, I don't know.
About that. Now, what did she die of?
Huh?
What did she die of?
Well, she was in a nursing home, just died. I reckon go up with a want attention, just to be straight with you.
And your daddy?
He just died one morning, got to put his pants on and fell back, and that's it. Heart trouble got him. Of course, had a little heart trouble. I went down to get the doctor to go where Mama and try to give her a shot to ease it. He said, them men will carry that old man to the doctor. He gave his heart. I said, I don't think so. My God, said I told him a month ago he's gonna die if he didn't go. But old Billy carried him over, and they said, oh, it wasn't that little leakage of the heart that kill you right now.
Well, tell us about. Go ahead.
Well, she's wanting to know when our mother and daddy died. Papa died in 1964 on December
the 16th.
And Mama died on, I think it was the 30th of September in 1966.
Yeah, that's
Really
right.
died the same year my husband died.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, tell us about some of the brothers, a little bit about each one of them. Say, let's start with Oscar. When he was the next one, wasn't he? What do you remember about? I've already heard that he was the he was the overseer of the farm there, and was real good at getting firewood.
Yes,
what else did he do?
If he ever got in the firewood, I never did know it. But
He worked pretty briefly, that's us.
What did he do?
Well, he just farm, plow, and mule and everything. That's all there was to do them days.
He married and farmed then.
after he got married, he did farm.
Now, he married who?
He married Christelle Cook.
And they lived.
You know, so Sam Simmons down here, a while back passed along out there, and I was standing out there, and I didn't even know what man was talking. He walked out. Mr. Dowe, how you getting along? Going out and shaking hands. I told him all right today. I said, son, you got me. I said, he said, oh, you know, this old Sam Simmons down. I said, my God, boy. He said, the reason I stopped here, I said, I'm over yonder around them old fellas knows you. Now, he says, you'd be surprised. I said, they old? I said, yeah, they'd have to be old to know me. He said, yeah. He says, I run into them all the time. He said, they know all about you.
Well, tell us about another one. Let's see. Who is it? Who's next? May?
The next one would be Hannah.
She married and...
She married Frank Singletary. And they had 2 daughters.
And their names?
Michelle and...
Fannie Lois.
Fannie Lois. Michelle and Fannie Lois.
Did he farm?
Nah, he
farmed some.
No, I wouldn't call him no farm. He worked over here running one of them old streetcars for years, didn't he? He never did farm much. Well, you'd call it a little patch farm.
His daddy run the streetcars, and he may have run it.
He did too.
But anyway, in his last years, he had a farm. They owned a place up close to, was it Dry Grove?
No, Goody owned one there. He first started off when they got married right there at Florence on the old 49 highway up there. You know, he built a little shotgun house up there. He was a pretty sensible kind of man, he was. He'd get a job anywhere, old Frank was.
What about Clifton?
Well...
And he married who?
Alice Nogris. She had been married before, and her maiden name was Hollis, I think. But she was...
Well, hey, Leslie, you told me one time about when times was real hard. Clifton was out hunting with one of your sons. Tell me that story.
Well, we lived about... I don't know whether it's a half a mile, and down this road right here, a little house down there, that belonged to Mr. Stubbs. Well, that day, I had cooked the last thing that I had in my house that I could cook for lunch that day. As well as I remember, it was enough bread to make some cornbread, and I can't remember what else it was, but that was it. And I did not know where my next meal was coming from, but I didn't say a word to the children. And that afternoon, Clifton came by going squirrel hunting down behind the house there. So he called my son, we called him Bud. He called Bud and asked him if he wanted to go hunting with him. Of course, he wanted to go, because they all loved him. And he went hunting with him. Well, he killed 4 squirrels. And he dressed him down there in the woods. So when he got back to the little path that led down to our house, and he was coming this way, he gave the squirrels to Bud and told him to bring them to the house. And he reached in his pocket and he had a $5 bill, and he says, you take this $5 and give it to your mother and tell her to go and get you something to eat. You don't know how happy I was when I got that $5. You could get a 24-pound sack of flour. You could get a 24 sack meal.
Oh, that was something them days.
Large, you could get.
Where did he get this money?
I don't know where he got it. He didn't have much money, but he never did fail to come across and help me out. And see, I had not told him that I didn't have anything. Now, Mama was the kind of person. Now, today, maybe I would go in there and she would give me anything in the world she had. But you go back tomorrow and she wouldn't give it to you to save your life. Well, I knew she had, and I had helped shell the corn to go to get meal made, and she had told me she would give me some meal, you see. Well, when they brought it back, she didn't give it to me. Well, I didn't ask for it because I knew better. I didn't say a word. But I knew she had plenty of meal up there and had flour and everything that she could have divided with me. But I didn't know if she would or not. But if he had not given me that money, I forgot how I got to town. But oh yes, I remember very well how I got to town that day. Looked up there, and Dolly had this little some kind of little car or something, and she was up at Mama's house up there, and I could see her from my house, you know. So I told Doris, I said, no, I told Bud. Doris and me was together. I said, Bud, I said, go up there and ask Aunt Dolly if she will take me to town to get some groceries that Clifton had given me this morning. And I had, I believe, 35 cents. I had 35 cents. That was all the money I had till he gave me that. So he went up there. She told him to tell me if I had 35 cents to buy gas that she would take me. So I said, well, I got the 35 cents, plus I had the $5, and she took me to town and bought that. But now she would not drive on down to our house and unload it down there. Kids and me packed it from down there, you know. Now that's how my sister did it.
Oh, that was rough.
She married at that time?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Her husband?
No.
You remember what she did? I think.
What sister was this?
This is Alma, Dolly, we call her.
You remember?
My youngest sister, Noah Womack's wife.
Joe, you remember one time I was coming from over here to the store, had a sack of flour on my shoulder, and coming down the road there, and I told it all where she passed me, put an eye for the T-model car. Passed me, and I said, why don't she stop and pick me up? And so I cut on in because she was sitting over here on the house, and I went up by there. Darn, I didn't know it was you. I said, I'd have picked you up. I said, let's get in there, Danny, right out in the middle of the daytime, and everything, as young as you know your own brother. I said, no, you just didn't want to pick me up. I said, now, that's red. And so I said, I'm going to get a car someday, and then I may have to pass you. And so Dowe said, I'll sell you this and mine. And me and your mother had made a pretty good little crop down there. And I said, well, how much will you take for it then? I believe he said $125, $150. I said, well, I got it right here then. And so he let me have the car, and I bought it from him.
Was that your first car?
I had the first one of them, you know.
And what kind of car was it?
It was I don't know, it was a pretty good Ford car. I don't know what it was in that time.
What year was that?
Man, they model, man.
Yeah, the A model. I just don't know. And so, you know, she never would do nothing for me, though. It'd be anything I've seen in my life.
Well, you talked about Clifton, but there's Bo now?
Well, see, we call Clifton Bo. We always called him Bo. That's his nickname.
Everybody in the country called him Cliff. They never called him Cliff.
I'm missing three. There's three that I haven't heard about.
What three is that?
Let's see. Well, I got Oscar and May and you two and Clifton and Dolly. And there weren't there 9?
No, the one with 8.
8. Okay, I'm missing
Dick,
2.
you must be thinking about
Dick, and then one more.
W.D.
W.D. Okay, tell me about W.D.
Well, he always done pretty good, W.D. did.
They never really.
He finished, he had a very good going pretty good. He finished high school.
Got a school bus.
Huh?
He got a school bus.
Yeah, you're right.
School bus did you drive?
Yeah, he rode a school bus. So I wanted to go to town with him. I had to give him about a couple of dollars, you know, to carry me down and get a few groceries. So I went to town, me and Carrie with him on Saturday, and we gave him $1 something to take care of the gas. It's rough.
Well, he had an old body built and put on the truck.
Uncle Vernon built the old body on
The school didn't provide the bus.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
You furnished your bus those days.
He bought it, and it was just a stripped-down old Chevrolet truck. And Uncle Varner taken it and made an old school bus out of it.
Well, I want to hear about you and Carrie and how you met.
How you met?
How you and Carrie met.
Well, up at Cliffs, up at Alice, you know, just over there, and they knew her up there for a year or two before we were married, and she always come around over to see that brother's wife, you know, and I run up on her over there.
Well, how old were you?
Huh?
You were kind of in your 20s, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I was 24 years old when I was married.
Well, what have you been doing all these years?
Huh? I'd been I worked for the county and everything else. I worked somewhere all the time, around for jobs, different
But
jobs.
never did settle down till you're 24.
Well, yeah, I settled down with Papa and them. I stayed there with her.
Where'd y'all go on your dates? What'd y'all do when you first met?
Well, no dates and nothing. They had an old, them brothers of hers had an old truck that they hauled vegetables and things off of, an old flatbed truck. And we'd all get together and go to Edwards to frolic, you know, and all go to church over here around Byram and dance.
I want to hear about this frolic now. Tell me about that.
Oh, nothing. They used to get them out in the home, you know, like him. That's where they used to give little parties they called them.
And you danced?
Huh?
And you danced?
Yeah.
Did you dance?
Oh, I didn't. I never could dance myself.
Well, did Carrie dance?
Yeah, she could dance.
So they had refreshments and dancing and
That's right.
at everybody at different people's homes.
Oh yeah, they come all around the country over. They hear about it during the week where they're gonna have one of their little dances, you know. But it got so bad they had to cut that out. Got to where they get drunk, you know, have trouble, and all that, you know.
Well, how long did y'all date before you married?
Oh, I don't know, son, about a year. I don't know. I'll tell you the truth, year or something.
Where did you get married?
Down here at the preacher's house in Rudica, Preacher Williams. Yeah, he's the man there. You know, I don't think much about it. He's the one that want to join the church over, and he's the one that married us down here.
Was anybody there? Who stood up?
No, just his folks. We just walked in there. He married us in his home.
Okay. Why didn't you have your family? You didn't want to have a wedding?
Man, there's 2 poor times. You couldn't have got down. You could have days. You just don't know.
Tell me about your honeymoon.
That was a honeymoon.
Where did y'all go on your honeymoon?
Nowhere.
Well, where did you stay?
Well, we stayed there with Papa for a little while. He got so rough, had to leave.
I bet that was fun, wasn't it?
Oh, it was something. Boy, that one poor woman went through torment with them, and me too. Looked like they tried to make it.
Strong-willed as mother was, and strong-willed as grandmother was, I can imagine that was quite a thing.
It was just something to stay there. She'd get up there. Papa had a whole, it's bad to say, had a bunch of old cows up there, and he'd laugh at him. Kids said, "I wish I had some of that milk, giving it to the dogs, the hogs up there, you know." One day, I came to tell Grandma, said, "You can't keep giving that away. We got to give that to them hogs down there, you know," and all such old crap of that. And he laughed them kids raggedy, you know. They would.
Talking about Royce and.
Yeah, that was Royce, and him says, "Well, they about got stripped down, ain't they, boy? You know, and everything, and all that old kind of crap." It was just something to bear.
And they were living where, and you were living.
They was living out over where G. Hammond lived.
Well, how long did you live with Papa and them before you?
Oh, I couldn't stay no about a year. I had to get out of the house. There wasn't nothing else to do.
Where'd you move to then?
Well, we moved up there back to Cook's up there in that old house up there. Old man Davis owned it. I stayed there that year and kind of made a sharecrop with him. And then I moved over there with Oscar. He had that old beer place. You can pass that road and see that big lake down to the right in it. Me and her raised tomatoes right in there. And we done pretty well in there. Then after got away from them, you couldn't stay with him. It was awful.
I'll tell you something that happened, talking about the wouldn't help with the cows and things. Well, you know, after Dick had that trouble and everything.
Now, whoa, what trouble?
Maybe you don't want to hear this.
Well.
And anyway, Miss Deaton had given Doris a heifer calf, you know. So she told, when she gave it to us, she says, now, each, when they have a heifer calf, give Bud and Peewee one, you know, till they got one to let them grow some cows, you know, heifer. Well, when he had this trouble, we had one nice heifer, you know. We had
Excuse me just a second. Hey, Les, you may want to move a little closer. He's moved that mic a little bit. I'll be sure I'm getting There you go.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll be sure we close that microphone.
Okay. And he said, I gave everybody, they expected us to give cows, to help to get him out of this trouble.
Broke us up.
Well, I gave, and it was not really mine to give, but I gave it. It was really Darcy's cows, but I gave it. Well, after we got it out there, and that Papa had that whole place out there in corn, the finest corn you ever laid your eyes on.
This is right over here?
Right over here.
And of course, we're here in Utica now.
That's right, here in Utica. And so that fall, I helped Papa and Mama we got a wagon, we gathered every bit of that corn and put it in the barn down there. And see, I was living in part of the house at that time. And I took my kids and us, and we gathered it all, and gathered the cotton. They had cotton. We finished gathering all the cotton and everything. Well, that winter, see, Papa would feed. He kept him a couple of cows as well as I remember, He didn't give all of his. And so that winter, Papa would go down there and feed this corn to his cows, you see. Of course, they were fat and looked nice, And so I just thought how many cows we had at that time, but we had one old red cow, and she was our milk cow, you see. And all the cows, ours was just getting so poor they couldn't hardly walk. Well, Papa wouldn't throw that corn out where they could have some too, you see, and let the weevils eat it up later. But anyhow, every night after Papa would close up the barn and everything, Bud would go down there, and he tore him a plank off of this place there, and he would reach in there, and he got 8 ears of corn, and he would break it up and give it to this cow, and she just give us plenty of milk then, and she was looking good. And Papa sat up there, well, I don't know how in the world that old cow's looking so good, that much milk. And the others said, this is what I won't say it on this.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He said, I'll be damned if I can understand. Well, nobody said a word. In fact, I didn't know it for a long time myself. I didn't know Bud was doing it. And I couldn't imagine either. Because our cow, that milk cow, she was fat and she was giving us plenty of milk and everything. So later on, Bud told me, he said, well, Mother, he said, now he can't do anything to me. And I'm going to tell you what I did, the reason we had that milk that cow so fast. He said, I stole 8 ears of corn from Papa every night after he'd put out, for his cows now, and see, he would shut the gates and leave ours out, don't you see, and put his in and feed them. And then he'd go to the house. So Bud said, I'd just go in there then, and I'd drive my old cow around there and put her in the stable there by herself, and said I'd get her 8 ears of corn, said I'd break it up good, and said I'd stay right there till she ate it all, and then I'd come on to the house.
So there wasn't a real family close?
No, there wasn't. I don't know what's with us all.
Why, we much, whenever Dick got in that trouble, every one of them goes, I had 3 or 4 cows, and I kept one, old milk cow, went and sold and put on in lawyer fee up there, and all of the whole family done it and broke them. He just put us out of business. Then one day, a while back, what me and he had that little run-in about it. I didn't. There wasn't nothing good with none of it.
No, it really wasn't. But what I mean,
Something I never did to me one time. It was in 1927, and we had been in the refugee camp for about 3 months on account of a flood up in the Delta. So we moved down to Utica on Dudley place. And A&M came to see us while we were down there. But us kids, when A&M would come, I don't know why it was in the bunch or not, but all of us will go back down the hill behind the house and swing on grapevines. And we'd just swing way out and then jump off, way down. So one time I jumped off, and there was an old rotten tomato stick about that big round sticking up out of the ground. And boy, I hit it right there above my knee. And it broke off in my leg. And my leg was just numb. So the kid took, and I had to put my arm around the neck, and it was getting dark, so it cast up to the house. And A&M Mama had a great big old wooden biscuit pan, a dough pan. Tray. She made biscuits in. Well, Aunt Emma was making up biscuits. Had a dough, her hand all in that dough. And so when Mama saw my leg get scared, Mama said, boy, she couldn't touch it. So Aunt Emma took her dough hand, full of old dough, and just reached down and pulled that stick out of my leg. Well, of course, it left a lot of little splinters around there. So Mama got a big old needle and she just picked all the splinters out. But when I think of Aunt Emma, that's what I always think of, something like that. But Mama was scared. She would keep Mama with her sister. And so she really...
But did you put any medication on it to heal?
I guess they put kerosene.
Just to...
That's what you usually use.
To kill the infection. But before we close or anything, I'd like to hear one comment about each of your boys. What do you remember them growing up?
Your boys.
I want for both of you, but
Let's start with Royce. What do you remember about him growing up?
Well, Roy's always been a good fella. I'll tell you that right now. He worked, happy, no complaint whatever with him.
what happened to his foot?
Well, he was always playing, him and his mother fixing an old barn, we always put cotton in there, and he was running around the barn and stuck a nail in his heel back there. And I don't know, he finally carried him on down to the doctor in town, and I don't know, give him some kind of shot, said he wouldn't have had died, but if he hadn't got under the lockjaw, would have got him. But since then, he's been in pretty good health and everything, all right. But for that boy there and Glenn, I ain't never had no trouble in the world with them. They've always been just as nice to me and everything. But Tal used to give me a lot of trouble, just all.
He's really your favorite, though, now, isn't he?
Son, I'll tell you one thing, or I'll have to say for him. If I'm in that night, there won't nobody else come but him. If I got to go to the hospital, let the circle come and get me. That's worth a whole lot to you.
Well, how'd you keep all those boys together and keep them with one wife and strong families, huh?
Well, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Their mother had a lot to do with it. She's raised good. She's a good woman, and they had to get in there. I was saying to get in over in that old house over the lamp down in the corner with them, couldn't hardly see. She's taking her a good switch across there with them, and if they didn't do right, she come down across their backs with it. That's what made them good. They knew better. They knew they had to get up and do right. No, we never did have no trouble with them. Tal used to, when he's young, he did, but after so long, he's all right.
All right, next, can you think of some instances of boys growing up?
Well, I don't know, honey. My boys had a hard time growing up just like I did.
Well, mine never did have too much of a trouble.
But as far as my boys ever given me any troubles, they never did. They sure never gave me any troubles at all. They were good to me.
And you have two, right?
Two sons.
And their names?
John Deaton was one. He's the one that died 9 years ago. And my baby was Clarence Deaton. His name is Clarence Dowe Deaton is his name.
I didn't know that.
Don't forget about
well, he said boys. He didn't say girls. And my daughter, Doris was my oldest one. Her name is Doris Kathleen, and she hates the name Kathleen. And Doris, too, she doesn't like either one.
Oh, I love Kathleen.
But Doris never gives me any trouble either.
Okay, well, looking back over your life, what was the hardest and what was the... Well, first, what was the hardest thing?
What you mean, that I ever had to go through?
Cope with?
Well, I know y'all gonna think terrible. The hardest thing I've ever had to do was give up my son.
Yeah, I expect it was.
Hardest thing. I've given up all my family just about it, but that's the hardest thing.
What was the thing that you to really look back on and say was the greatest thing that ever happened to you?
Well, I really don't know. There's been a lot of good things happen to me, along with all my bad times that I've had in my life. I've had good things.
I believe that's one reason that me and you prosper. We had such bad times going up.
I've got such good friends, and in my church means so much to me. If, like, I miss church today, now I won't feel near as good next week as I would had I gone to church today. And I feel like I've got some of the best friends in that church, and I just love my church. And I don't know, I guess at my age and everything, in one way, I'm living better than I ever lived in my life, you see. And I don't worry about things. I don't worry about what's going to happen to me tomorrow or whether I'm going to make ends or not. I just say, well, I'm going to take it one day at a time. And do you know something with my little Social Security that I get? Sometimes I think toward the last of the month, well, I don't know now if I'm going to be able to make it till I get the next one. But you know, so help me goodness, I come out good every time. It comes out right for me.
That's what Royston says about me, you know, because he keeps that with, though, you do holding your own, but you don't think about it, just know I have to live, too.
What was your worst thing, Daddy?
Do what?
What was your worst things you remember in your life?
Well, now, son, I don't know so many of them, I couldn't tell you.
And what was the best thing?
No, I don't know.
Would you say the Depression and living through the Depression?
Yeah, and
It was hard.
but best, listen, I got them boys up where they get around and take care of themselves, you know. That's worth a whole lot to a man raising a family. You know, you have to look after them, too, and pray something's going to happen to them, you know, and all that puts a worry on you. But I don't know. I always lucky enough. I worked for the county, and I got along pretty good, and they farmed and made it pretty good around here. I done pretty good after I started.
Okay, well, I think we've talked a good bit, and I think we've learned a lot. We need
to do this again next year now on that 90th birthday. Will it be 90 years next year?
Well, for me, if I live to see it, and I'm looking forward to my 90 years, too.
Okay, and next year we'll try to get more dates.
Okay.
And get